Hey guys, it's Jody with the Whiskey Rebellion Barcast. This is our crew tonight, and dude, this is a special occasion. Not only we're a little bit early, of course it'll be late when you guys see it, and you'll be like, I don't really get it, and I'll be like, I don't really care. But we're doing this a little bit early because we were able to get some Bell Mead honey in the samples from our from one of our practitioners, John, which we're very thankful for because, as you guys know, that this is on the market right now for the full bottle. This is 106 too, yeah. For about secondary market from anywhere from 750. I've seen this morning 800, and I have seen upwards to $1,100 for it for a bottle of it. So I'm hoping like hell it blows my freaking I had like the best orgasm ever just right now. Excuse me.
You okay?
It's allergy season here in Tennessee, so
he started thinking about
it. That was the Blazing Saddles moment. He just overcame himself.
Did I even got a tear? I'm like the crying Indian. Remember back in the day?
Oh God!
Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's not offensive. Remember the Indian that used to cry? Yeah. All right, when people would like litter
or trash. Yep.
Yeah, but anyway, so back to this. Enough about the crying Indian. So anyhow, we are excited to get to try this, and so we're doing this, and I'm gonna let John introduce it all. This was he won this on a lottery pick, I guess, kind of thing, and he was like, "Hey, if I win, I'm sharing the bottle with the guys." And you know what? He came through with it, and we all have a sample. So, John, take it away, brother.
All right. Well, like Jody said, we're gonna try the 2021 release of the Bell Mead Honey. So as you can tell, I shared majority of this bottle.
Majority,
so it is gone.
The entirety of it looks like.
My wife was like, we paid how much and you're sharing how much? And I'm like, psh, go sit down.
You have to do it like this. I mean, I know how well that works at my house, so I imagine it works at your house too.
Yeah, she might clock me. She scares me a little bit.
Actually, that real quick, with any woman, that doesn't work well with. If you're in a really strong, stable relationship, yeah, if you're in a strong, stable relationship, does not work. If you're in one that might be a little bit tumultuous, does not work. And if you're in like a new relationship, I wouldn't encourage that either, nor shush. There's all my love advice to all you guys that are watching. So back to you, John.
All right. Well, guys, if you have a Glencairn or you have a glass, go ahead and pour it in your glass. This is actually the glass that I purchased with it. So it's got the little two honeybees on top with the little clover pyramid, with the Bell Mead bourbon on the other side. Went ahead and just purchased a set of those to go along with it. But I thought before we kind of get into the tasting, for those who will be watching a little bit later, or if you are in different parts of the country where you may not have seen Greenbrier Whiskey Distillery or Tennessee whiskey out on the shelves, or Bell Mead bourbon, we'll give a quick background. So as I'm kind of going through this background, feel free to nose it up, kind of pull out the things that you're picking up. And then we'll get kind of in the tasting and do kind of a round robin to see what your picks are. But so first, you can't really fully understand Bell Mead honey without first going back to the Nelson's Greenbrier Whiskey Distillery. The distillery is located out of the Nashville, Tennessee area. Was founded by Charles Nelson, who was born in 1835 in northern Germany. While in Germany, his family owned and operated a soap and candle factory. And then when he was 15, his parents, wanted to move to America for a better life. And so in 1850, they started making the track over to the United States. And doing so, in November of 1850, they hit a bunch of storms over the cross of the Atlantic, and unfortunately 180 passengers went overboard. They lost their family fortune, and Charles's father, John, did not survive. So when the family showed up to New York, they only had the clothes on their back. So definitely, rags to riches type story. But when he was 17, they lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he went back to what he knew. So his family started a soap and candle company in Cincinnati, Ohio. And then just before the Civil War in the United States, he decided to move to Nashville, Tennessee, and he opened up a grocery store. He did really well. This was now it was in the area of what we now refer to as 2nd and Broadway, if I remember correctly. So he operated a grocery store out there, and the top three things that he sold were meat, because one of his good friends and mentors was a butcher, whiskey, which he learned how to the distilling process from a butcher, and then I think the third thing was coffee. And so I think there's rumor behind the coffee that he had in the blend there, I think got dropped off at what's now the Maxwell House Hotel, and so there's some connection there, I do believe, but that's I think that's rumor, and I don't know if that's been proven just yet. But when he saw that there was just a constant need, the demand for the whiskey outweighed the supply, which is kind of funny in this conversation because we're talking about honey. He bought the distillery that was based out of Greenbrier, Tennessee, which is about 15-20 minutes north of downtown Nashville today. But in 1885, he grew his business where he was making about 380,000 gallons, or about 2 million bottles a year. So that's pretty substantial, in my opinion, for that given time. But in doing so, one of his 30 brands that he actually had different labels was Bell Mead bourbon. So he worked with the Sperry Wade and Company family out of Nashville, and they launched the Bell Mead bourbon brand, utilizing the product, so the rye, the wheat, barley grown from the Bell Mead plantation in West Nashville. And as always, in 1909, Tennessee adopted prohibition, and it forced the distillery to shut down. So if we fast forward about 100 years, in 2006, the brothers Charlie and Andy Nelson had always heard rumors of their great grandfather who, was a distiller, but they just thought that he was just kind of a redneck out in the middle of on a farm making, moonshine. And so they went with their father to Greenbrier, Tennessee, and connected with the historical society up there, and learned that it was much more than that, that it was, the Greenbrier Tennessee whiskey was a well-known brand in Nashville in that time. Considered, I think it was like the label number 5 or something. And then I think that's a little bit, but that started in 2006. But they brought Bell Mead bourbon back as one of their first brands of their launch. And I do believe, and I think we could get in a little bit of this, but I believe Bell Mead is an MGP product. They do a bunch of blends. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about this is the Bell Mead logo. So the horse that's on the right, if you're looking at it, is Bonnie Scotland. So descendants of Bonnie Scotland include Seabiscuit, War Admiral, Secretariat, American Pharoah, all horses who are Triple Crown winners. And then Seabiscuit, which they made a well-known film about, and who, of course, beat War Admiral in a race. So very well-known descendants coming from the Bell Mead plantation. So that's a little bit about the whiskey behind what we're going to be tasting tonight. But the second company that did you have something to add there?
Yeah,
Jeff?
I was going to say, saw an interview with one of the brothers, and he said that their story really started that trip. They took a trip up with their father. He said they got stopped to get gas at a station, and they noticed one of those historical markers, and it had their name on it. So they went over to read it and read, and that kind of got him going into it. Then he said that they were going up there to buy a hog or a cow to butcher. And so they get out to the middle of nowhere to this farm, and they start talking to the farmer, and they ask him, "Hey, have you ever heard about the Greenbrier distillery?" And the farmer goes, "Yeah." So right across the street, those buildings back there, those were part of it. So that, again, that kind of started them on their journey to try to restart that. They were instrumental in helping change the laws, because in 2006 in Tennessee, there was only 3 counties that it was legal to distill in. Moore County, where Jack Daniels, Coffee County, where George Dickel is, and Lawrence County, where the county that the Lincoln County, because of the Lincoln County process. Those are the only 3 that you could distill in Tennessee. So they had to first get the laws changed. And so they worked on that. The other interesting thing is their liquor license, they were able to reinstate the original liquor license. So they hold liquor license number 5 again in Tennessee. So technically their liquor license is older than Jack Daniel's liquor license. Yeah, some neat things about the what they did and what they've done.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, the second company that just a quick overview is True Bee Honey. So we can't have Bell Mead Honey without True Bee Honey. They're based out of Arrington, Tennessee, which is right outside of the Franklin area, kind of basically in between Franklin and like Murfreesboro area, I guess you could say. But they are a honey farm that does barrel aged wildflower honey. So all of their honey gets put into whiskey barrels. We don't know how long they get aged for. They haven't. I don't think they've released that information, or I haven't been able to find that. But pretty cool thing there. So they purchased these barrels from Greenbrier Whiskey Distillery to be able to put their honey in. And then 1 year they said, hey, do y'all want these honey barrels back? Because I think this is when Bell Mead really started kind of playing with their line and doing different casks like their sherry, and then I think they have a cognac,
A Madeira.
Madeira.
Sherry cast.
Yeah, so they have several, and so they're like, well, that's kind of a neat idea. So they end up taking the barrels back, and now it's become an annual thing where they have a Bell Mead honey release. Now, I thought that they had a 2017 release, but I could be wrong on that. But I think the Bell Mead honey started in 2018. I couldn't find any information as far as like how many barrels were available in 2018, but this has grown since 2018. So in 2019 there was only 2 barrels of the Bell Mead honey, and then in 2020 there was 4 barrels, and this year there was a total of 7 barrels that they sent out to the market. So this year's release, well, let's kind of back up a little bit. So the Bell Mead honey, what they do is they take that barrel back, they pour their blend, or they pour the bourbon back into the barrel, and it ages for an additional 6 to 8 months after they've already taken all the honey out. They've released in about May of each year since they've started, I guess in 2018. And then there's been some pretty big frustration around this release each year for I guess since 2019 is when I kind of first started seeing some of the frustration. But a lot of people like camped out the night before, stood in lines, during the hot sun of May, humidity. So there's been some frustration out there. So people like would drive all over the country, fly in, spend a lot of money to get here, stand in line, and then even not get a bottle because just there wasn't enough. And so it caused a lot of frustration. So this year they changed things up a little bit where it was a virtual release. So you had to actually create an account on an app called Osner, which from what I know it's just an app where they do different releases and kind of lotteries, if you will, for different beer companies around the nation. And so they partner with them to do a virtual release of their Bell Mead honey. If you won, you got the privilege to purchase the bottle at a price of $174.99. And that was the only way to get it this year. It was a random drawing. But this year there was 2 picks. So the one that we're actually sipping on tonight is the one that they gave to the general public. So that were not members of the Cooper's Club. So this one that we're having is 106 proof. This is a blend of those 7 bottles. The other pick was specifically for their Cooper's Club members, which there was only 120 bottles of those. And so that was a single barrel. And I believe Jay got a single barrel, if I'm not mistaken. And the
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
And
the single barrel was sitting at a 105.3 proof. So that's a little bit about this year's pick. So again, we're having the 106 proof, and this is a blend of the 7 barrels. Jody went into a little bit. So immediately when people were picking these up on May the 24th, which was a Monday, I think they opened the doors at like 9 a.m. And by like 10 a.m., people were posting it on the secondary market, trying to get, anywhere from $800 to $1,200, like the first day. And I believe it was selling for that. So
it was definitely going for $1,100 for sure on the very first day. I think it's kind of dropped off a little bit. But I literally looked before we started the show today, and there was someone currently on one of the secondary pages looking to allow someone to have the opportunity to have it for $800. So,
well, and then so last fact about this year's was out of the 7 barrels, all of the barrels consisted of 7 to 13-year-old whiskey. So that's what we're having tonight. So I'll start us off. So on the nose, I'm a big honey guy. I have a sweet tooth by nature, but I've come to appreciate honey. I had a buddy in the military that his father was kind of an amateur bee farmer in Charleston, South Carolina. And so when I used to go home with him, and we used to hit, King Street and Market Street in Charleston, I got to learn a little bit about honey while I was there, and try different ones like orange blossom and different, flowers that he would, control the bees with. And it was interesting. And so I'm fascinated by honey. But with this one, I definitely get some dark honey notes on the nose. I think if I go full nostrils, into the glass, I think you get a little bit of ethanol, especially as it sits.
You get an ethanol hit. That's true.
Yeah.
See, I got an apple hit. I got apple and honey is what I got on the nose. A very sweet apple and honey.
Yeah, I mean,
you're biasing me, but I can smell it now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely got a sweet. I don't know if it's from the honey. I mean, I think you could get it like that honey crisp apple type, smell in that. Some folks have suggested that they got cedar out of it. To be honest, I don't
smell that.
I don't get that.
I can tell you this, but as many people don't know, is I'm actually having 2 drinks tonight. I'm having the release that John is giving us. That's here on my left, and then I'm also having. I wanted to try it up against GT honey, and I can tell you this: when I smelled this, that apple and honey smell was bam! It's right there on the nose, and it's strong, and I can sense it. It smells like it's for real, like it's made with real honey. I will tell you the GT, it's very, very faint. I can barely smell it honey at all. It actually, I smell more barrel taste. I mean, more barrel smell, I should say, in the GT honey. But continue. I'm sorry.
I mean, that's it for the nose for me. I mean, did anybody else get anything else from that?
I got like a burnt sugar honey, kind of like a dark honey, as you say. I don't know if I can comment on the cedar, but I'm getting a wood that's not oak, not necessarily oaky, like traditional oaky, as would normally get with a lot of other bourbons. Don't know about the cedar. Maybe people say cedar because it's got a sweet smell anyway, and they can't differentiate between the oak and the honey. It's somewhere in between.
I can see that.
I get something.
I'm getting a wood, but it's not quite oak, is what I was getting at, really.
Are you going to say it smells like leather?
No,
it's not that kind of.
I don't get the leather. I get the.
I was being facetious.
I know.
I get the
ethanol.
I got the honey. Slight cedar, very, very slight.
That's cedar. I get something floral. And it's like you said, you kind of have to back up off it a little bit. You don't want to like a full breathe in through the nostrils, because you do get kind of like an ethanol burn. It's kind of wrecking to the whatever the nose equivalent of one's palate is.
If you go full nose and then take it away,
yeah. If you back up just a little bit, you get the nuance of that, and you smell the sweetness and a little floral. The sweetness of the honey, of course.
If you start close,
It's
and
lovely.
then-
I
and then
haven't
take
tasted
away.
it yet, though. I'm very excited. Are we moving to
Yeah.
that stage?
Yeah. So I'll start us off with the taste. The taste, surprisingly
Hold on a second. Let's do this. I actually think we all ought to take a taste first, so you don't pervert our taste.
Okay.
I mean, my tastes are already pretty perverted. I was like, who's gonna spit it? Nobody. All right. Good job, guys.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
She better be short if you can spin it. Not leggy. You'll have knees and ankles and all that hitting you all over the place. It's interesting. All right, go ahead, John.
So, I was a little surprised by the finish, or with just kind of it hitting the palate.
Wow.
I mean, it's 106 proof. 100 is kind of my kind of.
Me too, every day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of right at the 100 point. That's just kind of my comfort zone. But to be honest, I was a little shocked. Yeah, I was shocked a little bit by it, because when it hit my palate, I was like, damn, this is hot. Like you get some you get that heat like right up front. I was like, whew. And I had to look back at the barrel, the bottle, and was like, it says 106, but this is definitely hot. But what I really like about the palate is kind of how it starts to finish, and you get the honey on the back end. It definitely makes that heat up front well worth it. And to be honest, I mean, this has just been something that I've enjoyed sipping on. To be honest, I think this is probably I've only had definitely not more than 8 ounces of the entire bottle, and this would probably be my 8th ounce. But it's been one that I've enjoyed every sip that I've had of it. So, but what about y'all?
I can tell you that I compared it. I took a drink. I would agree that when you first take a sip of this, it is hot for a 106. It is very hot. And I will tell you that the finish is not long, and there's not a lot of oily taste. It's more of, to me, I find kind of odd for honey based, something that's been sitting in a honey barrel. I did get a hint of the honey. I lost all the apple. And then it seemed like as it trailed off, it did have a very cedar-like taste to it. I then compared it to the GT honey. I rinsed my mouth out, and then I compared it to the GT honey. And the GT honey felt oilier, but it felt young. Like you can taste the age in the Belle Meade. So far, the Belle Meade is definitely winning over the honey of the GT.
I'm getting more of a cinder toffee to the honey.
So we don't have that in the States. So I'm not really sure what that is.
Right.
Coffee.
Would it be like a Heath bar?
Let me try and think. Carrying amongst yourselves, I'll come up with something.
Talk amongst yourselves. I'm verklempt.
It does have a very. I would agree with you, Jody. It's not necessarily like a heavy or oily mouthfeel, but there's a lovely warmth that just permeates the entire thing.
Which I think goes into the cedar. I think
it hot at all. But
I disagree. It is hot on the front end.
Well, that's you. Yeah, for me, to me, when something comes in hot, it's like, okay, it's a bit of a spice. All right, okay, all right. Give me a second and kind of let it mellow out. This is it's just warm, and it kind of runs all the way through to the end. Who did we just lose?
Mao.
We just lost Mao.
The whole reason why we're doing this show.
There, he's back. All right. He's having the same problems I was the other day. But it rides through it. I get almost like a caramel apple thing on like towards the end of it.
I could see that. That would come close to a cedar aspect as a caramel apple.
Yeah, I could see how those would be similar.
I can see that. And I agree with you. I will agree with that sentiment about it being warm all the way through. It is a start to finish. It is, you feel the heat of it for me, which you would say warmth. And I agree with you. I just think that when I first had it and I'm looking at it, so it's a 106 and I'm going, I literally had earlier in the day when I finished up with my last student, I needed to have one. I had a 122.8.
Yeah.
This felt hotter than that.
Mm.
And maybe that's why, because like, I guess to me, it's, it's subjective, it's experiential. Like, if I have something and I think it's legitimately hot, it's different than saying, oh, there's some warmth there, but I'm not necessarily going, oh, that was a hot one kind of thing. I feel a strong warmth to this, but I don't know if I would call it hot. And that said, there are higher proof ones that would probably feel, less warm or hot than this one.
I think this would be wonderful if you was out somewhere in a cabin and there was some good snow on the ground and you were sitting around a fire.
Yes.
I think this would be absolutely perfect.
I agree.
It definitely has it sets itself apart from a lot of bourbons. I can say that. It's different. Like the color.
The color is fantastic. That's what I was trying to show
yeah.
you guys earlier. Is
Yeah.
like this right here is the GT honey.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's I love the color of it. It has a nice color.
The color's wonderful. For 106, it doesn't seem to be too bad. I let this one breathe, but when I took my first sip of it, it did come in a little warm, a little spicy. But other than that, it's actually really good. I think if it was snowing outside and you were sitting around, you probably go through most of the bottle of this and not realize it. It would just keep you at a perfect temperature.
Not if you paid $1,200 for it, but yeah.
Well, I don't know.
That brings up another question that we can talk about is that all of us have participated in the second, well, not all of us, but the majority of us have participated in the secondary market. Is this something that you would pay $700 for?
No.
And I would agree with that. This is not one of those ones that I would go, you know what? I can see myself doing that. I do think it's worth every bit of, I would pay $220, $230 for it. I know that that's higher than what it cost. I would pay that for it. It is that good. I agree with you. And I think it would be fantastic to have in a cabin, or if you're on a trip with your significant other or whatever, and you're in a cold place, and just what you said, or hell, I got one better. Say you're not feeling well, you need a nightcap. This right here would be absolutely awesome to have with it.
Yeah,
it's not just that fake stuff that Jack Daniels puts in and says, hey, it's a wintertime drink. No, this is actually legit, and I love the smell of it. I think the aroma that comes from the nose of it, I wish they'd bottle that up and make it into a cologne. I'd be like, hell yeah, that might be worth $700.
Can you imagine if this was a candle?
Yeah, candle would be even better.
For sure.
Yeah,
put on some Jodeci and put this
no, especially because I was taking it in as John was telling a little bit about the story behind it, and I was thinking, why is this not a candle?
Yeah, where's Bed Bath and Beyond?
We gotta mix the candles.
Yeah,
they'll get on that.
Great.
We can bring back Hallmark, get them on it.
I would definitely say 250, 300. But if I had to choose between Stag Senior and a bottle of this, if I can get Stag Seniors for $5, I'm going with the Stag Senior for sure.
I agree with you when it comes to the aspect of I'm not a flavored person other than I like sherry cast and I do like the cherry flavor. All right. I'm not knocking this. And I will tell you the reason why I'm typically not a flavored person. It's because of the GT type. This tastes weak and it tastes young, and it tastes almost as if they just added honey to it. All right. I know that you can't do that, but that's what I'm saying. That's what it tastes like. This right here.
One other thing.
What did that cost? What did that cost you, by the way, the GT honey?
I didn't pay for it. I got it as a gift. And
okay.
From one of our bartenders, Corey, and he said, hey, I know you like the cherry taste, but I want you to try this. And I'm like, cool. And then he asked me about it. He goes, I really love the honey one. I'm like, and I told him he already knows it. So when he watched it, he won't be surprised. I was like, I'll be honest with you, I didn't like it. I wouldn't be buying it on secondary.
One other thing, guys, a little bit off subject. As I'm sure most of you know, here in the city of Miami, a little village called Surfside, we had a building that collapsed. So I just want to say, listen to all the first responders, the fire departments. We've had fire departments and rescue teams come in from everywhere, not just South Florida. I mean, as far away as the Panhandle. So I want to give a special shout out to them guys. I know you guys have seen it on TV, but they're literally working under a building that could collapse at any second.
Yeah.
Like there's people, their only job is just to sit here and watch this building. And if it moves 2 centimeters, you need to run, you know? So I want to give a shout out to them. And another thing that I want to, you know, my prayers and condolences to the families who was in that building. But I just want people to understand, you know, I'm not a first responder. I'm not an architect or engineer, but listen, I don't know if you could get me to work under those conditions. A lot of people feel as if the first responders are not moving fast enough or not doing enough to get to their family members and whatnot. I just want to say, listen, you got to give these people time. You gotta let them work. It's literally trying to dig the beach with a spoon. It really is.
Without
So,
removing that one last thing that causes the rest of it.
yeah, exactly. I mean, they've evacuated surrounding buildings and all that, but listen, I watched the thing and I don't even have anxieties, but to watch these people work under that building that's like 75% gone, listen. So that's that.
That's rough to watch. Yeah.
Yeah,
It is.
hard.
And I do appreciate you bringing that up. I do think we need to, we have to remember that is a very, I mean, who knows how it's going to turn out. I pray that more people will be found alive. I will not be holding my breath for a lot of that because a lot of time as it has went on. So my prayers are more towards the families of the ones that will be lost, and of course our first responders. And I think I appreciate you bringing that all up. Because we're on a short time tonight, I do want to stick to the honey and but I do think that was warranted, and I truly and sincerely appreciate you bringing that up.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
All right, Jeff, you haven't really said a whole lot. What are your thoughts on this?
So I don't have a taster of this. I did try it back about a month ago. I had Jay's bottle, so it would have been the single barrel. I really enjoyed it. I do remember agreeing that it had a little bit of hotness to it that balanced very well, and especially the honey. The honey kind of helped mellow it a bit. So I remember it being a little hot as you tasted it, and then the honey opened up and brought in that sweetness on the back end. It was excellent.
Yeah. It is. I will tell you, it is really, really, really good. I love the history of Belle Meade story. I really do. I had no idea all of that. And you guys might have seen me jumping off the camera a few times because I was Google searching all of this because I want to add to it, want to add some value to the conversation. And I couldn't because John hit all the parts. And then on the parts where I was getting ready to say something, Jeff hit on him. I'm like, well, then screw the both you guys. But no. So my added value to this is, do I think this is well, first of all, do I see myself putting myself in that lottery next year? The answer is yes. Do I see it for the purposes of secondary resale? No. As you guys know, I don't typically participate in that. I sometimes pick up bottles that way, and sometimes I have moved some recently that way. But that's not really my game. I've only participated like 3 times ever, and I've been part of that page for a long time. Do I think it's worth, if someone said, hey, look, I think Billy brought it up perfectly. Do I think it's as good as Rock Hill Farm? No. Do I think it's at the same price point as Rock Hill Farm secondary? That's a different question. And I think because of the uniqueness of it, I would have to say yes. So I would be a participant and a buyer in that aspect in the secondary world. Now, do I typically do that? No. Do I like certain aspects of it? Of course. I think Billy hit on perfectly about a cabin, fire, being around family, friends, wintertime. That is perfect. And then I think adding the aspect of I might be a little bit under the weather is perfect, because honey and bourbon, that's exactly what our ancestors did.
Yeah.
you know. So
Hot
it's
toddy,
yeah. So it sounds great.
I'm sorry. I got a
Go ahead.
question for
No, go
guys.
ahead.
With this Bell Mead honey, has it moved the needle at all on any of the other variations, like the other Bell Meads?
I like the Bell Meads. I'm a big fan of the I'm first of all, let me put it differently. I'm a big fan of the sherry cast of almost anything. So I'll say that first. So I'll preface that, so I'm a little bit biased. But I have a bottle downstairs of the Bell Mead sherry cast. I think it's 108 proof, I'm pretty sure. And it is dynamite. Now, what I like, there's two parts that I like about it. One is because of the sweetness it has, it's not something you can just sit around and go, which wouldn't be something I would do anyhow, but you can't just sit around and have well-behaved James drinks, you just can't do it. You have to have reasonable drinks, kind of like what we've been doing here, because of the sweetness. Otherwise you would have that stomach sugar burn. I am not a cognac person, so that wouldn't have me go in that direction. I think they also have a peach as well. I could be wrong, or a vanilla. I know it's one of the two.
They had a vanilla, but they only did like one barrel of the vanilla to try it out.
That's an additive. That's where they're adding a taste to it.
Yeah. So, what they did is they actually bought a barrel just to try it out. They bought a barrel of an old whiskey barrel that had vanilla extract, just aged in it. They bought that barrel and they did the exact same thing. They poured bourbon into it. And that's what I think they released the vanilla last year, if I'm not mistaken.
That is right. Yep.
And same thing, like, there was only one barrel of it and still hit the market at, $1,200 on, the secondary market in Nashville. And I was like, man, I think that would be really good. I love vanilla as well. But I don't know.
See, that's where I guess I'm a little bit persnickety and maybe become a snob, is that I like the vanilla taste or caramel taste or whatever that comes from the actual bourbon itself, the blend, the age, the time that it's spent in that barrel, that it naturally has those expressions that you pick up. It's kind of like what we were talking about with GTS. I'm not going to pay $1,200 for either one of them, but if I had to pick one that had to just spend $1,200 on, it's going to be GTS. And the reason why is the complexities are so much more available with GTS versus this. Now, I think this right here, everyone that tasted are going to get a strong thing of honey, first and foremost, period. I think they're going to get heat of some sort, whether it's a hot or just medium warm all the way through. I think they're going to get that. I think they're going to see that it's not very oily, which is fine. It doesn't have to be oily to be good. Actually, that was one of the things I liked about it, that it didn't feel like it was sticking to me as it was going down, which you anticipate with honey. I mean, think about how many times you've had a teaspoon of honey and you're tasting it for 3 hours,
And the thing with honey is why it kind of soothes a sore throat,
because it sticks to it.
Because
it coats
that
it.
coating.
So, that coating is going to stick with you for a while. I've had just a couple of sips of this and I still got a little bit left, but that honey is still sitting on my palate. And I feel like it's probably going to be sitting there for a couple of more hours, but that's not something I don't think I'm going to be mad about. That's for sure.
Well, I just poured an ounce of the Bell Mead Reserve, which is 108 proof. And to be honest, the Bell Mead honey, it feels hotter than the 108 of Bell Mead Reserve. And even still, I have like the taste of honey in my mouth, like through my cheeks, like even the roof of my mouth. So even after an ounce of Bell Mead Reserve, I can still taste the honey.
Yeah.
I honestly really like that about this, because to me, this whole just experiencing it, it's like people have talked about, this would be great. You're up in a cabin, it's cold out, maybe you don't feel great. It's like a warm hug of your palate. And it stays with you in all the ways you might want it to, and not that lingering, ugly burn, whatever, like a funky aftertaste, anything like that. It's everything I would want in a whiskey that stays with me for a while after I drink it. And I know that I've actually got some good quality out of it. People oftentimes associate that with it. I know you're about to say something, it was like a heavy or oily mouthfeel. This one doesn't have it, but it maintains that longevity regardless. I think it's fantastic. I think this really puts the idea of like flavored whiskeys and things like that, like way much higher in my expectations in the future, because it kind of seemed like a gimmick before trying this to me. But I think this is really good. You know, the whole question about secondary and whether or not I could even afford it and all that other stuff, I'm gonna leave that to you guys. But to me, this is quality, and I completely appreciate it.
Well, but the
Hold on a
different,
second, real quick, I want to just bring up something. Hold your glasses up real quick.
I'm out.
I have very little left.
Okay,
I've
but
got-
the majority of us have some left, we'll say. All right. I would just want to prove your point, what you were saying. I've been sipping on this one because when it's done, it's done. I have no more left. I went ahead and got rid of the GT because like, let's just get that one out of the way, you know, so I could sit here and actually have something with quality. That's the reason why I wanted to show that experiment. Go ahead, John.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, well, it probably wasn't important.
Shoot, what was I going to say? Well, oh yeah, I know what I was going to say. I mean, all the hunt, like, you know, I got this and I was like, damn, I wish this was like something that they would have released like on the regular. But I mean, from what I've read and what I've heard about, you know, Bell Mead, they have no intention of making this kind of an everyday, you know, thing that you can go purchase on the shelf.
That's really a shame.
And well, it's largely due to the fact that, you know, they get the barrels directly from True Bee Honey, and because they don't know the aging process of the honey, they don't know, they can't really forecast of how many barrels they're going to get per year.
For sure.
Which is interesting. So I think it's just going to be an annual release. It's interesting to see how they've pretty much doubled, you know, the batch each year. So, you know, from what I could find in 2019, it was 2 barrels, 4 barrels in 2020, 7 barrels in, you know, 21. You know, so, you know, it could be as high as, you know, 16 barrels next year, 15, you know, 15, 16 barrels. You know, I wish it would be something that I could purchase all the time. I liked it so much the first time I tried it. I started looking up different honey bourbons. The only thing I could find, you know, was, you know, obviously American, you know, Wild Turkey's American honey, Jack Daniel's honey, Jim Beam honey, but all of those are at like, what, they're like 70 proof. I mean, they're really low.
It's
Yeah, well, it's because they're
liqueurs.
adding flavors. They're not aging them. They're
Yeah.
adding flavors. So they're not bourbons anymore. They're just
They are what you
whiskey
would class as a
liqueurs.
flavored bourbon.
It's
This
it's
isn't
funny.
It's not a
Flavored
flavored
whiskey.
whiskey.
It's funny that you bring that up because I've
Whiskey bourbon,
had
whatever.
sort of a request put in me to get for a friend a gift. Somebody really likes Jack Honey, and I'm like, okay, what better thing can I get them than Jack Honey that would kind of still be in the same vein?
Anything.
Obviously not this, but yeah, no, but
You can
like,
get them water, bag of marbles, rocks.
okay, anybody other
Charcoal.
than Jody have any suggestions?
Cafe
Because I know you were
305
going to go with it. You're like, so
barbecue
basically you
There
shouldn't
you
drink.
go. Cafe 305 barbecue sauce.
sauce.
Couple of sticks to rub
Hey.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a
They can
question.
bounce a penis off their forehead. A lot of things are going to be better than that.
I do have a question for Mal though. Like, you know, in the South, like, I mean, there's tons of like honey farms. There's a Blue Ridge Honey Company in like northern Georgia, you know, just north of Atlanta. You know, obviously True Bee Honey here in Tennessee. I mean, there's tons of places. You know, Mal, what does the honey community look like in, you know, the UK? You know, and do y'all have, you know, honey flavored whiskeys or, you know, something along this lines?
Yeah, I mean, we've got, you know, your big distributors and what have you, and there's a lot of importing going on. But as far as the traditional stuff, it's usually farm shops. So independent
Wouldn't that be
family
similar
run
to our, like,
farms.
Yeah, like our moonshine. That's what it sounds like.
Could be similar, yeah. But just sort of, you know, independent family run farms that keep bees as well as, you know, other things. Sell, you know, their local produce out of the farm shops. That's where your serious customers tend to go. Other than that, it's usually sort of mass produced, imported out of, you know, your supermarkets and what have you.
How do you
as
think
flavored,
how do you think this would go in the UK though? Like, if this was something that you could get,
That's
you
a
know,
great
just
question.
one time of year in the UK, you know, what would
This-
the UK Bourbon Society do? Like, how do you think
This-
this would hit the market?
This particular bottle, I'm going to plead the fifth. I'm not a fan. Not at the price, and I'm not talking secondary. I wouldn't pay 175 personally. And
Imagine
again,
just
taste the
That's
subjective.
fair.
It's a
That's
50
fair.
It's a
It's-
$50 bottle to me. That one.
I can
Yeah.
I can truly appreciate that. I was honestly and I came into this thinking the exact same thing you are, Mal, to be perfectly honest with you. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be shit. I really did think that is the God honest truth, because I do not
I
like
didn't-
flavored, and I don't like honey.
I had a
I mean, I love
preconceived
honey.
idea.
What's that?
Yeah, I had a preconceived idea at the idea of the flavored bourbons, whiskeys, whatever you want to call them, and I knew after doing some reading on this stuff that it wasn't a flavored bourbon or whiskey. It was done differently to the traditional.
Right. That's exactly what I had hopes
Yeah.
out for. It's because it was done
So-
differently.
That's what I clung on to until actually tasting it. When I taste it, I'm still not sure the skin is going to grow back on my throat.
I didn't think it was that hot. I really didn't.
Yeah, it has some spice to it.
I thought it had some spice too.
But
For
it's-
a 106, I thought it had much more than I anticipated.
I think it runs hotter than a lot at that proof point.
We're
for
allowing
sure.
you to talk too much. You had Jen the other day on the show
Yeah.
yeah, even I was
And I'm still here to talk about it.
from a
Explain
place
that.
called Gobblers.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm,
Gobblers.
even I
Creek.
was disappointed when I watched the show back there. And I like Jack. So yeah,
You guys didn't get a good look at that post I did from when I was there. The plastic barrels with like the oak staves like floating around in it. Like I posted it on the Facebook group. You guys were like, "What? They're not oak barrels that they're aging." I was like, "Dude, I posted about it. Like you see the picture. It's a blue plastic barrel full of whiskey. Like it's just so different.
When-
it was
when
just
I
so
saw-
damn different."
When I saw that post, David, I had one of my old military buddies, like his voice played in my head. He's no longer with us, but he was like, "Hey man, you got to watch where you get that moonshine from, man. You can go blind." Like as soon as
Yeah,
you
I
post
thought
that
the same
picture, I'm
thing.
like, "Damn, David's
That
gonna go
dude-
blind drinking that shit."
Made some like rusty radiator like moonshine.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
which it's funny because he uses the same mash bill for like everything he makes. You know, whether it's
Water or
whiskey-
mud.
No, yeah. The whiskey, the gin, he makes a vodka, I think, and a moonshine. Like it's all just the same mash bill, and he just like distills it more harder, and then adds like
it all
floral
it all
shit for
comes out of
gin,
the it all comes out of the same barrel. It's got paint stripper written on it by the sound of it.
like-
Yeah. And to me,
It actually,
if
it actually
they're
was
doing-
not that bad.
If
honestly,
they're doing
really
that, I think it shows their lack of creativity.
Mm.
You know,
It's like
recipes are-
one dude in the woods by himself. Like it's,
No, I get that.
That
but-
part sounds cool.
I don't want to dog this guy because it would actually be fun to have him on to talk about it sometime.
No,
I
it's
don't wanna
not
dog out
dogging
his
him,
product.
but
Does
I
he have
mean,
all of his teeth though?
I think he did.
Are you
Yeah,
It's
sure?
so
just
he-
surprising for Summertown, you know.
he ain't that backyard if he got all his teeth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he may be a hipster that moved there.
Well,
No, this guy
he-
is definitely like 100% country, like born
well,
and
he
raised. like-
took his money. He bought some veneers.
No, he has an
and
angel
he only got
investor,
the
is
plastic
what- oh, I see what
50-gallon
you're saying, yeah.
drums.
It was either the drums or the veneer, so he had to pick.
But anyway, we
That's
didn't
what I'm
come
saying,
on here to
like,
talk
he
about
got-
all that, but yeah, but Mel, to your point, you're right. For the price point, I would never even approach a bottle like this, even before secondary.
Yeah.
I think I do think it's really good. I don't think I'll ever look for a bottle just because of the price point.
But let's
And that's a
talk about
shame
that.
because
Let's
they're
talk
not
about that
more
for a
widely
second,
available.
Is it the hype?
That's
that
exactly
really
right.
took it there. I
Fair
don't, even in their minds, if you happen to come across a bottle of this and it was on the shelf for 60, 75 bucks, I think it would sell all day, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh yeah.
I think it should, yeah.
But I think a lot of the hype behind it, and it makes you wonder who's controlling this or who's putting this narrative out there about this stuff. Because I mean,
CNN.
listen, yeah,
Well,
exactly.
that's the thing. Like, so I'm kind of right there with you. Like, Mal, I totally get it, and I agree with you. Really, I mean, to be honest, like was I comfortable paying $175 like one time of year? Yeah, I'll do it one time.
For sure.
You know,
Don't-
would I
don't get-
go
don't
above?
get me
Would I
wrong, John.
personally go above $200? I don't know, man. That's kind of hard.
Well,
Like,
I was referring to it as a secondary price. Like, would I pay secondary price for the same thing I would Rock Hill Farm here in the state of Tennessee, secondary price for it? And the answer is yes, I would. But that's $250 to $330 is what that runs here in the state of Tennessee.
yeah. I mean,
I would
have,
do that for that because of the rarity of it, and it is that good, to be honest with you.
I like it. And to be honest, like even at 230, like even I just said I'd pay $200. If you just said, well, John, I'll sell you the bottle at 230, I'm like, to be honest, like I would hesitate, and I'd probably have to go, text Ashley and be like, hey, you go me,
can I take out money?
$30 more than what I would typically pay for it. But like if this was something that would like hit the shelves.
So what happened was,
but if this was something that was on the shelves, every single day, to be honest, I wouldn't pay more than $99.99 for it.
That's
Yeah.
true. Now that's a true aspect.
Don't
But
get me
if it was
Don't get me wrong, John. All I would say is, and I feel sorry to cut you off there, Jody, but
no,
all I
no,
would
no
say,
worries.
I should have started that statement off by first of all saying thank you, dude. Really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well,
I
here's
know
what
we've
I would
already thanked each other on the group, but
Here-
officially thank you.
here's the way I would say that is that availability, it's a whole supply demand curve. All right.
Mm.
If the demand is there, all right, the problem is the supply isn't, so the price is going to jump up. All right. If the demand stayed the same, but supply was plentiful, yes, would I pay comfortably any day of the week? I should probably preface this differently. If you have the means and the availability to buy a bottle every week or whatever, and you want to pay $69, $79, $89, $99, whatever it is, they set their price point at, and it was available like that. Do I think it's worth that? Absolutely. I really, really do. I wish this definitely around the wintertime. Like, I think May is such a horrible time to release it. And they're like, dude, you're an idiot. We sell out of every bottle. And I'm like, you're right. I am an idiot because you do sell out of every bottle. But to me, I do agree with what Billy said. This would be, if there was like 45 barrels, let's just say, and you could lower the price point down to 125, they would all be gone in a second in November when everybody's when everybody's still looking for all of the BTACs,
Yeah.
I really do believe it would be gone that fast.
Oh, yeah, it wouldn't make it onto the shelves. It'll
Yeah.
be pre-sold and it'll be done.
Yep.
Well, one of the things that we haven't really hit on, that at the end of the day, this is still an MGP product. So if we look at all the other distilleries and startups and other blends that we know that are out there, is there another MGP product that you would rather have than this particular pour? Like what kind of stands out in your mind that
I don't know if there's a particular pour, but you know what? For me, when something's overhyped, sometimes I have a tendency to stay away from it. Only because I think you're kind of setting yourself up. I'm not so much concerned with it being an MGP product, but I think sometimes the hype is just that. It's a hype. It's a lie. It's just what it is. And
what's that P word that you like to use, Jeff?
Free.
There you go.
That's it. Plain and simple. So, I mean, I
Thank
feel
God
like,
it's not a fucking pleonasm.
I feel like there's other things out there that you can get relatively easy. I mean, I've had the Lever's Fork. If I had to choose between the Lever's Fork and
I agree with you there.
honey,
Agree with you.
I mean,
Agree
come
with you.
on. I pay a little bit more for the Lever's Fork than I would the Belle Meade,
That's a no
And what's happening with what's bad about the Leaper's Fort right now is I don't know what John's experiencing. I can't find it.
Yeah, it's harder to find.
I can't find it at all right now. I'm like waiting for their next.
If you need a
batch.
bottle, I could probably score you one.
If you can, let me know and I'll demo you.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
if you,
Can I
if,
say-
if you
can I say
if you
something?
see some in Murfreesboro, let me know.
Yeah, because
I've
I'll
seen them around a couple places in Murfreesboro.
let me know
Those of
because
you-
I need to get one to Mark and then also one to Billy. I think was that the other one? Billy,
Yeah,
okay, yeah. So it was those two. Those two
I'll
guys.
have to do this one at a time.
I have to until both are our black guys.
I'm pretty sure we saw it up in Hendersonville yesterday.
Interesting way to think about
Anybody
it.
gets up there, I'll tell you.
It's
I'll
not very
tell you
interesting
what
when
it
you
is.
have an all Caucasian crew. Caucasian crew. I said Caucasian.
Occasion.
We
just
made
gonna
it
say,
very
guys,
well.
those of you,
Occasion.
those of you that have finished your glass, get your nose in there now, and that's how it should taste to me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of doing that.
Mhm.
Now, can you imagine somewhere up in the mountains, you walked into a cabin and that's the aroma you had? I'd be like, okay,
That-
I'm good. I'm staying here.
Never gonna leave.
That I would pay MSRP for, but what I drank, I wouldn't. If that makes sense to you guys.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. And if you look at that though, that's 5 out of 6. That's kind of what they're looking for in their price point, you know.
Yeah.
And honestly, it might only be 4 out of 6. That's still better than most marketing strategical plans. So, so I actually think that they did good. I wish that they had more availability, and I wish that the secondary on it wasn't so much molestation. But with that all being said, and I know that that's Miles' favorite term, guys, let's call it a night on this. That tasting was fun. Thank you, John. Little
Yes,
John.
Yes,
Little
Yeah,
John.
seriously. Thank you.
Hey, Little John.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Appreciate it, brother. That
Yeah.
was awesome. And thank you very much for that. And I appreciate you taking the track out here to Casa de Le Mans just to drop it off, because I was like, hey, man, we can hardly do the show if you don't have one. But you did. You made it happen.
What's your name? What? What is your name? Tony! Fuck you, Tony!